Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have a great show for you today. First on the docket, unveiling the enigma. Bryan Kohberger's academic insights, the 3D house model, and the shadows of the Idaho murders. James Craig trial. Closing arguments concluded as jury is deliberating right now for the dentist poisoning his wife. Donna Adelson's legal team fights to suppress the airport arrest video. Another one bites the dust. That's right. Sarah Boone's attorney's carousel spins again. Some lawnmower lunacy, the explosive eviction revenge. We have this day in legal history. Our legal quote has to do why criminals do what they do, and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do. Leave me a comment below and make sure you hit that little bell for notifications. And remember, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. And you must be doing that because our numbers are going way up on the podcast charts as well. So before we get started, let me remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for that background subscription service today. When you do, you'll be able to do a background search on anyone in the United States. And whether you want to do one search or 1,000 searches, you can do it. The report is literally prepared while you wait. And yes, you're going to get information that you probably should know about. Say, for example, you're doing a background check on your potential boyfriend. Let's say that. And you find out that he has all kinds of social media contacts and sites and email addresses and phone numbers that he hasn't given to you. Is that because he's using them for his contacts for all his dating sites? You may want to ask him. You're going to find out if somebody has a criminal history. Are they married? Are they divorced? Are they on a sex offender registry? Yes, everything you need to know, literally prepared while you wait, and a report is emailed to you, and an update can be done as well when new information becomes available. Imagine if you had to go and search thousands of databases all by yourself, but it's all done with one simple search. CrimeTalkSearch.com. Go do it today. You're going to be happy that you did. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I still cannot believe that July is almost over. Today, Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. Let's go ahead and open the record. And first on the docket, unveiling that enigma of Bryan Kohberger, right? His academic insights, the 3D house model, and the shadows of the Idaho murders. An enigma, indeed. Some may say, oh, Scott, what's an enigma? An enigma is something or someone that is mysterious, puzzling, or difficult to understand. Obviously refers to a person or situation that presents a riddle or conundrum, often due to complexity, ambiguity, or obscure nature. And it can also denote a paradox or something that defies clear explanation despite efforts to comprehend it. Kind of sounds like Bryan Kohberger, doesn't it? So, in the realm of true crime, few cases captivate and unsettle as profoundly as the 2022 University of Idaho murders, where Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez were brutally slain in their off-campus home. Now, at the center of this tragedy obviously stands Bryan Kohberger, the former criminology student at Washington State University. He was charged with those 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary, and drawing from recently released police records, Kohberger's own academic work, a detailed term paper on crime scene processing and court proceedings surrounding a 3D model of the crime scene, we're going to explore kind of the chilling juxtaposition between his scholarly pursuits and the innovative trial preparations and the allegations against him. All right, so let's talk about a quick snapshot of the horror of this entire case and the investigation. All right. So for those who aren't familiar with the case, the murders occurred in the early hours of November 13th of 2022 at the 1122 King Road there in Moscow, Idaho. Now, Kohberger was arrested in December of 2022 in Pennsylvania and ultimately pled guilty to the charges on July 2nd. Of this year. He accepted a plea deal that resulted in 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, avoiding a trial and a death penalty. Police records unsealed through subpoenas from institutions like Washington State University and DeSalle University reveal insight into Kohberger's academic and personal life, while court documents detail the meticulous preparation for what anticipated to be a high-profile trial. So a forensic innovation that never saw court was a significant element in the trial preparation, and that was a 4-foot-tall, not-to-scale 3D model of the King Road house. And it was constructed by the FBI to aid witnesses' demonstrations of what they were describing to the jury. Now, the model was built on 4 wheels for courtroom mobility, was designed to provide jurors with a tangible representation of the crime scene, capturing the layout of the 3-story residence where the murders occurred. And the FBI's efforts involved revisiting the King Road property back in October of 2023 to gather documentation for the visual and audio exhibits, ensuring accuracy in replicating the home's structure. Now, the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, argued for the model's inclusion to assist witnesses in illustrating their testimony, emphasizing its role as a demonstrative tool rather than evidence. And despite objections from Kohberger's defense team, who raised concerns about its accuracy due to the not-to-scale design, Judge Hippler approved its use for demonstrative purposes only, which means it wasn't admitted into evidence or would not have been admitted, and the jury could not take it back into the deliberation room. The judge clarified there is a significant distinction between demonstrative exhibits or trial models, charts, things of that nature, and attempts to use things for evidentiary value in and of themselves. However, with Kohberger's plea deal, the model was never utilized in court. Anyway, the prosecutor's office later released images of the model to the press in response to public records requests, offering a rare glimpse into this forensic tool. Now, the house itself was demolished back in December of 2023 against the wishes of some of the victims' families, who viewed it as a piece of critical evidence. And the model's creation underscores the lengths to which investigators went to reconstruct the scene, paralleling Kohberger's own academic emphasis on preserving crime scene integrity. And where does this come from? Well, it comes from Kohberger's 12-page term paper completed back in May of 2022 for a criminal justice course at DeSalle University under Professor David Sipe. And it meticulously outlines the processing of a hypothetical murder scene involving a 35-year-old white female found deceased in her trailer home. Now, the paper emphasizes preventing contamination through the theory of transfer, the idea that individuals exchange traces with a scene, and advocates for tools like latent fingerprint kits, DNA swabs, and computer-aided design for precise reconstruction. Using his own words against him, weren't they? Anyway, Kohberger's focus on maintaining a snapshot in time mirrors the FBI's approach with the 3D model, highlighting a chilling alignment between his academic knowledge and the real-world investigation. Now, the paper scenario, with its violent home invasion and physical evidence like a knife and coat hanger, bears some unsettling similarities to the Idaho case. Now, while coincidental, it raises questions about whether Kohberger's studies were purely academic or reflective of a deeper fascination. Professor Sipe, the only witness prosecutors considered calling to testify about the paper, retired after the 2023-2024 academic year, and the document released in court records has fueled speculation about Kohberger's mindset. Police records further reveal Kohberger's pre-arrest life. A student with a reported difficulties in social interaction, particularly with female students, as noted in the Washington State University faculty emails. One professor planned an intervention after Kohberger offended women, and another expressed reluctance to even bother mentoring him. And these interpersonal challenges, combined with his academic immersion in criminology, paint a complex portrait of a man now convicted of some very heinous crimes. So, some of the insights from the records have been released, specifically the academic struggles, right? Faculties were concerned about Kohberger's interaction with female students, suggests some underlying social issues that may have foreshadowed his actions. Then we have the crime scene model, right? Kohberger's term paper demonstrates a deep understanding of forensic protocols, from evidence collection to chain of custody procedures, ironically applied in the investigation against him. We also learned that Kohberger expressed an interest in becoming a police officer, but hesitated due to uncertainty, a stark contrast to his later actions. They also describe him as somewhat of a Christian-raised skeptic. Kohberger's reflections on nature during a cross-country drive add a psychological dimension to his profile as well. Then we know his post-murder behavior, where after the killings, Kohberger reportedly shifted to using cash and wearing gloves, avoiding the crime scene area, and fixating on news coverage, suggesting an awareness of the investigative techniques. And then, of course, the Idaho case, coupled with the unused 3D model, highlights a little interaction of forensic innovation and criminology education. Kohberger's academic work detailing tools like VICAP and evidence admissibility mirrors the real-world efforts to bring him to justice. The 3D model, though never used, represents a modern approach to courtroom visualization, aligning with Kohberger's own advocacy for computer-aided design and crime scene reconstruction. And as the case concludes with Kohberger's life sentence, it serves as a somewhat cautionary tale about the boundaries between studying crime and committing it. For true crime enthusiasts, the interplay of Kohberger's scholarly output, the forensic model, and the unresolved questions of motive offers a profound exploration of justice's complexities. Here's something our CrimeTalk team found when they were doing some research on some of this stuff. Photos of 1122 King Road, when it was listed for rent or for sale at the time, obviously listed as a 6-bedroom, 3-bath. We found this at Realtor.com. It's still there. So if you're interested in seeing the photographs of it was before it was obviously torn down, a little surprised that the ad is still up, but I guess nobody bothered to take it down. Well, we found it. Next on the docket, the trial of James Carig. The jury is deliberating, and my guess is we're probably going to have a verdict. I'd say by tomorrow, midday. We'll see how it goes. So the trial of James Carig, a 47-year-old dentist accused of poisoning his wife, Angela Carig, in 2023, reached a pivotal stage as closing arguments concluded today. The jury is now deliberating with the verdict, and Carig faces charges of first-degree murder, solicitation to commit murder, and solicitation to commit perjury, stemming from allegations that he administered cyanide and tetrahydrozoline to his wife of 23 years. The case, which has unfolded in the Arapahoe County Courthouse over the past 2 weeks, centers on the prosecution's assertion that Dr. Carig's actions were driven by financial difficulties and, extramarital affairs. Now, during opening statements back on July 15th, prosecutors outlined a narrative of deliberate poisoning, claiming Carig added lethal substances to Angela's protein shake. In contrast, the defense maintained that Angela was aware of the couple's financial and relationship issues, suggesting the death may have resulted from suicide rather than a homicide. Well, the prosecutor's closing arguments described a pattern of deception and a motive. In their closing remarks, prosecutors emphasized Carig's shifting explanation for Angela's death as evidence of guilt. They described 3 inconsistent narratives from Carig. First, that Angela intentionally committed suicide. Second, that he assisted her in doing so. And third, that she framed him by taking the poison herself. Now, the truth doesn't change, the prosecutor stated, arguing that these variations undermine Carig's credibility. They asserted that Angela played no role in her own demise and that Carig's desire to exit the marriage without the repercussions of divorce, particularly concerning finance and public reputation, provided a clear motive. Now, prosecutors highlighted Carig's internet searches, including queries as how to make murder look like a heart attack and how long does it take to die from arsenic poisoning, as indications of premeditation. They questioned why, if Carig aimed to prevent a suicide, he did not search for ways to save his wife instead. Additional evidence included Carig's urgent efforts to obtain cyanide, with the testimony from medical supply company employees describing his request for overnight shipments. Prosecutors noted Carig's alleged purchase of multiple bottles of eye drops containing the tetrahydrozoline and surveillance footage showing him handling a syringe in the kitchen. He can't even take the weekend off from trying to murder his wife, the prosecutor remarked, portraying Carig as a relentlessly pursuing poison amid his affairs. Now, the state also addressed the couple's marital strife revealed through Angela's journals and witness accounts. And while acknowledging the pain of infidelity, prosecutors argued it did not drive Angela to suicide, pointing to her efforts to seek medical help for her unexplained illness as evidence of her will to live. Now, the defense's closing argument said, hey, it was a flawed investigation and there is reasonable doubt. The defense countered by framing the case as one involving broken people, a broken marriage, and a broken investigation. They urged jurors to set aside sympathy and personal judgment about Carig's character, emphasizing that he is not on trial about whether he was a crappy husband, but whether the prosecution proved guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. This case is not about speculation, assumptions, and it's not about sympathy, the defense stated. It's not about if you like him because, my goodness, really? The defense attorneys also highlighted entries from Angela's journal dating back to 2008 and 2018, where she expressed feelings of depression, worthlessness, and heartbreak over Carig's repeated infidelity. The defense argued that the marriage, though marked by love and affection as seen in home videos, was strained by years of cheating, isolation, and emotional toll, potentially leading Angela to self-harm. The defense dismissed financial motives, noting the couple owned a $1 million home outright, had no overdue bills, and maintained mutual life insurance policies. Now, criticizing the investigation, the defense pointed to blinders in the police work, including presumptions by a medical examiner who classified Angela's death as a homicide based on incomplete information. They argued key questions such as who administered the tetrahydrozoline, when and how remain unanswered, insisting jurors cannot guess at these elements. Regarding Carig's post-arrest behavior, including attempts to solicit perjury from jail, the defense attributed it to desperation and fear rather than an admission of guilt. So a quick background on some of the witness testimony. So over the trial duration, prosecutors called witnesses including co-workers who described a suspicious package arriving at Carig's office and his unusual behavior leading up to Angela's death. Employees from a medical supply company testified to Carig's request for cyanide, which he claimed were at Angela's behest. Family members, including the couple's daughter and Angela's relatives, refuted suggestions of suicidal ideations, describing her as a resilient person despite marital challenges. The defense, however, characterized these testimonies as assumptions, underscoring Angela's private nature and history of emotional distress. Now, both sides rested their cases on Monday morning, paving the way for closing arguments in the afternoon. The court resumed on Tuesday with jury instructions preceding the statements. Now, as of July 29th, today, the jury is deliberating with no immediate time for a verdict. Obviously, they can deliberate for as long or as little as they feel necessary. And it'll be interesting to see. My guess is you'll never know, but I think they're going to come back sometime tomorrow. They're going to talk about it. It was a 2-week trial. As you can see, we can knock out a 2-week trial pretty quickly on a murder, solicitation for murder. Knocked it out in 2 weeks. Seems like some of these other states, this would be a 2-month trial. Pretty straightforward. Just keep the witnesses coming in and out. I'm always surprised by how long these trials take in other states, when I'm like, this is a week trial anywhere I'd be at. I mean, most homicides, 6-7 days at most. Next on the docket, let's talk about Donna Adelson's legal team trying to keep some of that pesky video evidence out. So let's dive into the latest developments in the case of Donna Adelson, who faces charges in connection with the alleged murder for hire plot of the Florida State University law professor, Dan Markle. Now, Adelson's legal team has renewed their efforts to block a critical piece of evidence, specifically the body cam footage of her dramatic arrest at the Miami International Airport back in November of 2023. Adelson was apprehended just moments before boarding a one-way flight to Vietnam, a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. Prosecutors argue that her attempt to flee demonstrates a consciousness of guilt, a point they intend to emphasize in her upcoming murder trial. However, Adelson's attorneys counter that she was unaware of any arrest warrant at the time, and she was free to travel. They are urging the presiding judge to bar the airport arrest video from being shown to jurors, claiming it could unfairly prejudice the case. Now, the defense motion filed just last week follows a previous unsuccessful attempt to keep that same evidence out. The judge's earlier ruling permitted the prosecution to use the footage, but it remains uncertain whether the court will reconsider this decision when a final ruling will be issued. Now, the body cam footage captures the moments of Adelson's arrest as she and her husband prepared to board their flight. This video has become a focal point in the case, with prosecutors arguing that it underscores Adelson's alleged intent to evade justice. Now, Adelson is accused of playing a role in the 2014 murder of Dan Markle, a case that has gripped the nation with the complex web of family dynamics and alleged conspiracies. And as the trial approaches, all eyes are on the courtroom to see how the judge will rule on this evidence. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We'll bring you more updates on this developing story and bring you that in-depth analysis. My guess is the judge has already ruled once. It's coming in. Hey, I got an idea. Don't buy a one-way ticket to Vietnam. Who does that? Not most people, particularly if you tend to come home. Anyway, what can you do? We'll see. I don't think the judges don't reverse themselves unless you can really show there's some appellate error there, and I just don't see that by that video coming on. And it does show consciousness of guilt. It's called flight. Anyway, because I think there is sufficient evidence that she knew, based upon conversations with her son, who had just been convicted, well, that things weren't going so well. Next, another one bites the dust. That's right, Sarah Boone's attorney carousel spins again. So, where the drama never sleeps, and apparently neither does Sarah Boone's knack for driving attorneys away faster than you can say objection. In the latest episode of what could be a courtroom soap opera, yet another lawyer has thrown in the towel, leaving Boone's appeal in a state of legal limbo. So let's see what's on this wild ride. So Sarah Boone, currently serving a life sentence for the chilling 2020 murder of her boyfriend, Jorge Torres Jr., is back in the headlines. And if you're new to this saga, Boone zipped Torres into a suitcase during what she claimed was simply a game of hide and seek, then beat him, leading to his suffocation. Now, as she fights to appeal her conviction, Boone's legal team seems to be playing its own game of a disappearing act. Enter Joshua Adams. That's Boone's second appellate attorney, who was appointed back in December of 2024, just weeks after she was sentenced. Now, Adams was supposed to be her ticket to overturning that life sentence, but it seems Boone's charm, or lack thereof, has struck again. In a motion filed on July 28th, Adams politely requested to exit stage left, citing that he no longer practicing appellate law. Adams politely requested to exit stage left, citing that he's no longer practicing appellate work or accepting court-appointed appellate cases. Translation: I'm out, and this case is too much of a headache. But let's not pin all the blame on Adams. Boone herself has been vocal about his radio silence. In a 5-page inquiry filed with the court, she aired her grievances like a reality TV star at a reunion special. Apparently, Adams introduced himself via inmate messaging on February 27th, then ghosted her harder than a bad Tinder date. Phone calls ignored. Handwritten letters unanswered. Emails from third-party reps, crickets. Boone's not exactly winning Miss Congeniality in the legal world, but you think her attorney would at least pick up the phone. This isn't Boone's first rodeo with attorney attrition. Before her trial, she cycled through 8 lawyers, yes, 8, like they were outfits that she couldn't quite make work. Anyway, the judge eventually had enough and ruled that Boone had forfeited her right to counsel, forcing her to represent herself. And then at the 11th hour, James Owens swooped in to volunteer as her trial attorney, probably wondering what he'd gotten himself into. Well, it didn't end well for Boone. And let's not forget the first appellate attorney, Alan Holland, who lasted a whopping 16 days before being replaced for reasons as mysterious as Boone's decision making it that fatal hide-and-seek game. What Adams now bowing out, Boone's appeal, due by September 1st, is looking shakier than a house of cards in a windstorm. So what's next for Sarah Boone? Will she find an attorney who can handle her unique brand of chaos, or will she continue to alienate every lawyer in the state of Florida? One thing's for sure, this case is serving up more twists than a telenovela. Sarah Boone, I'd say she's forfeited her right to counsel. That other guy stepped in, Mr. Owens, good for him, whatever. She'll get her appeal filed. They will find her an attorney, and she will get an extension. That's what's going to happen. Don't worry, Sarah Boone fans, she's going to get her appeal, which will more than likely be denied. Next, some lawnmower lunacy. All right. Buckle up. We are going to dive into a story so wild it sounds like it was ripped from a Hollywood blockbuster. Picture this: a landlord, a lawnmower, and a boom that could have turned a quiet Pennsylvania township into a crime scene straight out of an action flick. Let's talk about the guy who allegedly decided Eviction deserved an explosion. Encore. Let's unpack the case against James Seaver, the man accused of turning a club cadet into a ticking time bomb. Let's roll. July 20th, 2025, in sleepy Salem Township, Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, landlord David Martin is just trying to keep his rental property spick and span. He hopes that his trusty Club Cadet Zero-turn lawnmower fires it up. And boom! An explosion rocks the garage bay, nearly sending Martin to the greatest lawn in the sky. This wasn't a faulty spark plug, folks. Police say this was a full-on bomb. And the prime suspect? A disgruntled ex-tenant with a grudge and apparently a knack for DIY disasters. So, meet James Seaver. This guy's 54, who allegedly didn't take kindly to being evicted from Martin's property back in June. The court affidavit says that Seaver was pissed. So pissed, in fact, that on June 11th, he swung by the property and dropped some not-so-subtle threats. I shall quote, "You're going to end up getting yourself hurt over this," end quote. Yikes. Talk about foreshadowing. Fast forward 5 weeks and Martin's lawnmower is doing its best impression of a Michael Bay movie. So here's how it went down. Martin pulls into the rental property about 4 p.m. to do some maintenance. He fills the lawnmower's tank, hops on, and lets it idle for 10 seconds. The seconds he nudges it forward, kaboom! The blast jolts him forward and he bolts out of the garage faster than you can say lawn care liability. A nearby witness who was out raking grass like just another Tuesday hears the explosion, sees Martin sprinting and rushes in turn to turn off the still running mower. Oh, and did I mention the wooden cat box in the garage that's now on fire? Yes, this scene got more chaos than a Black Friday sale. The feds, the FBI, the ATF, the whole alphabet soup swoop in and find a garage bay looking like a war zone. Metal shrapnel everywhere, bits of threaded pipe, nails, screws, zip ties, even battery and wire components. And experts confirm this was no lawnmower malfunction. Someone planted an improvised explosive device. And the clues? Well, they're pointing straight at Seaver like a neon sign. Phone records show that he was lurking less than half a mile from the property the day before, hanging out for a suspicious amount of time, 50 minutes. Tire tracks nearby match his white Dodge Ram 1500, and when cops search his truck, they find black zip ties that screamed, "I was here," louder than a toddler with a megaphone. So, but wait, there's more. A witness living near the property says that Seaver rolled up on the day of the explosion, looking like he just crawled out of a ditch, dirty, disheveled, acting like he had too many espressos. He's asking about neighbors, ranting about his eviction, and rocking a red t-shirt and dark shorts that, surprise, match clothes found in his truck. Oh, and let's not forget the piece of de resistance. Sever's old neighbors from 2023 say the guy's got a history of explosive temper tantrums. Apparently, when his chimney was acting up, Seaver growled, "I'll blow that mother effer up." Subtle, James, subtle. Anyway, now Seaver faces a laundry list of charges that make your head spin: attempted homicide, aggravated assault, reckless endangerment, recklessly endangering another person, weapons of mass destruction, yep, you heard that right, plus risking catastrophe, possessing an instrument of crime, trespassing, and simple assault. As of now, he's still out there, reportedly haunting the wooded area of Derry and Blairsville, Pennsylvania, according to the state police. If you see him, call 911. So if you're out hiking and spot a guy looking like he's plotting his next lawnmower sabotage, maybe don't stick around for a chat. All right. From eviction to explosion, this is a wild ride of revenge gone wrong. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. All right. Until the next Lawnmower case, let's move on. This day in legal history, July 29th, 1800, what was described as America's first murder trial. That's right. The trial of Levi Weeks was tried in New York City for murdering Elma Sands. Got a lot of publicity because he was represented by Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, and he was acquitted after just 5 minutes of jury deliberations. Now, the claim that it was America's first murder trial back in 1800, well, requires a little bit of examination, right? And the historical records indicate that it was not the first murder trial in the United States, but rather just a notable early case due to its high profile legal representation and the public attention. So Weeks was tried in New York City for the murder of Elma Sands, a young woman who was found dead in a well in Manhattan in December of 1799. The trial was significant due to its time to the involvement of prominent attorney Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, who defended Weeks. The trial attracted considerable public interest, and Weeks was acquitted after a brief jury deliberation, reportedly only lasting 5 minutes. Like I said, it was not the first trial. There had been lots of murder trials in the colonies before that, but it was the one that they referred to as the first because it was so well publicized. On this date, July 29th, 1878, Congress passes legislation increasing funding for the United States Marshal Service to combat rising crime in the Western Territories. Obviously, a little action there to bolster some criminal law enforcement. July 29th, 1921, a Chicago grand jury issues indictments in the Black Sox scandal, charging players and gamblers with conspiracy to fix the 1919 World Series. Obviously, a landmark sports-related criminal case. July 29th, 1932, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow rob a bank in Carthage, Missouri, leading to a federal manhunt and arrest of accomplices, a notable event in quite a crime spree. And then on July 29th, 1966, the United States Department of Justice issues guidelines to federal law enforcement agencies to implement Miranda v. Arizona protocols, ensuring suspects are informed of their rights. Obviously, a big action that the United States Supreme Court created so people understand their rights when it comes to criminal procedure. And in July 29th, 1975, Teamster leader Jimmy Hoffa vanishes in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, triggering a massive federal investigation into his presumed murder, one of the most infamous unsolved criminal cases in U.S. history. Next, our legal quote of the day has to deal with basically why do criminals do what they do? And this comes from Cesar Lombroso in a book titled Criminal Man, 1876, ladies and gentlemen. And here it is. Criminals do not act according to a rational calculus of profit and loss, but are driven by a complex interplay of psychological, social, and environmental factors that shape their choices and behaviors. Deep, right? This quote encapsulates the perspective that criminal behavior often stems from the combination of internal and external influences rather than purely rational decision making. Anyway, Lombroso, a foundational figure in criminology, emphasized the multifaceted nature of criminal motivations, including psychological predispositions and societal conditions. And finally, our dumb criminals of the day. That's not just one, two dumb criminals. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up and keep your tray table in the upright position because today's Crime Talk Dumb Criminals of the Day award goes to a couple who took in-flight entertainment to a whole new level of stupid. Please meet Trista Riley and Christopher Arnold, the Connecticut lovebirds who thought a JetBlue flight to Sarasota was their personal adult film set. Let's set the stage. JetBlue flight 163, soaring out of JFK, filled with passengers dreaming of sunny Florida beaches. But in row 25, Trista and Christopher were apparently dreaming of something far less family-friendly. According to the affidavit for arrest, these two decided to join the Mile High Club in the most blatant way possible, right in front of a mother and her kids, no less. Talk about an in-flight show nobody asked for. A flight attendant, a guy by the name of Bryan Zepp, heroically ventured to the scene after reports of lewd or lascivious exhibition. What did he find? Trista, a medical receptionist by day, allegedly bobbing her head in Christopher's lap like she was auditioning for a role in Snakes on a Plane, the X-rated cut. A nearby mom traveling with her 2 young kids told cops she spotted Trista, quote, jerking off, end quote, her man during takeoff. Yes, takeoff, because nothing says romance like turbulence and a captive audience of horrified minors. The mom noted her kids were watching, but did our amorous duo stop? Nope. They just kept the show going, with Trista allegedly escalating to oral activities in mid-flight. Now let's pause to appreciate the sheer audacity. Most people struggle to get comfy in economy class, but these two turned their seats into a risque recliner. And who are our stars of the airborne fiasco? Trista, a medical receptionist with a clean record, and Christopher, a general contractor with a 2004 pot possession conviction and a recent brush with assault charges. Clearly, they're not new to bad decisions, but this is one that takes the cake, or rather the in-flight pretzels. Now, the plane landed in Sarasota, and instead of hitting the beach, Trista and Christopher hit the county jail, charged with felony lewd behavior. They were released on their own recognizance yesterday, pending a jurisdiction review, with an arraignment set for August 15th. Here's hoping they use the time to reflect on better places for romance, like anywhere 30,000 feet in the air with kids nearby. So congratulations, Trista and Christopher, for earning Crime Talk's Dumb Criminal of the Day award. You've proven that some people will go to great heights or depths to make terrible choices. Next time, maybe stick to watching the in-flight movie. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for more Dumb Criminals. All right, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And remember, the Constitution matters.